Imagine you're reading a bedtime story. Princesses, magic, a happy ending. But what if I told you that the original versions of these stories were never meant for children? No censorship, no happy endings, and sometimes even more terrifying than horror movies. Today, you'll see fairy tales the way they were originally meant to be. Why were fairy tales so cruel? Fairy tales were not created for children. They were part of an oral tradition, stories passed down from generation to generation. Their purpose was not to entertain, but to frighten, to teach survival, and to warn. In a world without laws or safety, fear was the most effective teacher. That's why fairy tales were filled with death, betrayal, cannibalism, and brutal punishments. Cinderella? Not a story about love. You know Cinderella as a kind story about a prince in a glass slipper. But in the version by the Brothers Grimm, everything is much darker. When the prince searches for the owner of the slipper, Cinderella's sisters do something horrifying. One cuts off her toes, the other, part of her heel, all just to fit into the shoe. Blood fills the slipper, but the prince doesn't notice until it's too late. And the ending? Doves peck out the sisters' eyes. Forever. Snow White, cannibalism, and revenge. There's a detail in the story of Snow White that is often removed. The evil queen orders the huntsman to kill the girl and bring back her lungs and liver. Why? To eat them. Cannibalism as an act of victory. But that's not all. At the end of the story, the queen is punished. She is forced to dance in red-hot iron shoes until she dies. Little Red Riding Hood, darker than it seems. In early versions of the story, there is no hunter. No one comes to save her. The wolf kills the grandmother and feeds her flesh to the girl. Yes, she doesn't know what she's eaten. And then, the story ends in death. No rescue, no happy ending. Sleeping Beauty, a story of cruelty. The original version of Sleeping Beauty is not about romance at all. In the old Italian version, a king finds a girl who is asleep, and instead of waking her with a kiss, he takes advantage of her while she is unconscious. She gives birth to children without ever waking up, and only later, by accident, does she come back to life. This is no longer a fairy tale, it's a nightmare. Hansel and Gretel, a brutal reality. The story of Hansel and Gretel has roots in times of famine in Europe. Parents could actually abandon their children in the forest just to survive themselves. The tale reflects this terrifying reality. And the witch? She's not just evil. She is a symbol of cannibalism. The fear of being eaten in a world where there is not enough food. Rapunzel, isolation, pregnancy, and punishment. In the Brothers Grimm version, Rapunzel is a story of total control. She is taken from her parents as a baby and raised in a tower, completely cut off from the world. No choice, no life beyond it. When the prince secretly visits her, she doesn't just fall in love, she becomes pregnant. That's how the truth is revealed. The witch's punishment, her hair is cut off, a symbol of lost power and freedom. She is banished into the wilderness, where she must survive alone with her children. The prince falls from the tower and goes blind. This is not a love story. It's a story about punishment for trying to escape control. The Little Mermaid, love that destroys. The original Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen. She saves the prince and falls in love. To be with him, she gives up her voice. In return, she gets legs. But every step feels like walking on knives. She endures the pain for love. But the prince never even knows she saved him. He marries someone else. She's given one last chance. Kill the prince and save herself. She can't do it. And she turns into sea foam, a story about sacrifice that turns out to be meaningless. Bluebeard, the forbidden room. A man gives his wife the keys to the entire house. Except one room. The rule seems simple, but it's a trap. When she opens the door, she finds the bodies of his previous wives. The key is stained with blood that cannot be washed away, a mark of guilt that cannot be hidden. He returns and plans to kill her too. A story about curiosity revealing the truth, but that truth can cost your life. Why these stories were changed. Over time, fairy tales were adapted for children. Authors like Charles Perrault and the Brothers Grimm began softening the stories. Later, companies like Disney turned them into kind, safe tales. Without blood, without horror, without their original meaning, the fairy tales you know are only a shadow of their true versions. Once, they were warnings about danger, about the cruelty of the world, and maybe they were never meant for children at all. So the next time you hear a familiar story, ask yourself, what part of the story was hidden from you?